The January 6th Capitol riot has gone down as one of the most controversial, divisive, and significant days in recent American political history. And if it maintains its current reputation, it is very plausible that it could be named as one of the most important events of the 21st century. After all, it was the first time that the United States Capitol had been breached since the British burnt the building to the ground more than 200 years ago in the War of 1812. In addition to this, it served as a major turning point for many influential contemporary politicians. The most notable of these was the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Regardless of one's political stance, it is clear that Trump played a crucial role in the events that took place on that day. Whether he incited the violence that occurred or not is still up for debate, but it is evident that his presence makes him liable, at least indirectly. Trump has been and continues to be an undeniably divisive figure in Washington, with some claiming that he had single-handedly saved the country during his time in office, while others referred to him as a no-good tyrant with no respect for democracy. In fact, some have taken it as far as to call him a modern-day Julius Caesar. Salvete, my friends, and welcome back to S.P.Q.R. Productions. Today, we are going to be trying to answer the question of whether or not Trump really is a modern-day Julius Caesar by taking a look back into the lives of both of these controversial yet undeniably significant figures of history. In order to do this in as unbiased a manner as possible, I have decided to split up the video into a few sections that deal with different elements of the claim. First, it is necessary for us to analyze the lives of the two figures individually, so we will briefly cover each of their biographies. Then, we will compare the similarities of the two, followed by the differences, and ultimately, we will conclude with the verdict of the argument. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy as we delve into this interesting historical debate. Julius Caesar, born into the patrician Julian clan on July 12th or 13th, 100 BC, emerged as a towering figure in Roman history, profoundly shaping the course of Western civilization. Despite his family's noble lineage, claiming descent from Julius, son of the Trojan prince Aeneas and goddess Venus, they were not particularly influential at his birth. Caesar's early life coincided with a tumultuous period in the Roman Republic, characterized by a fierce power struggle between the optimates, aristocratic conservatives, and the populares, reformists favoring the plebeians. His path to prominence began in a Rome embroiled in political turmoil. His familial ties to Gaius Marius, a leading populatus and his uncle by marriage, and the ruthless rivalry with Sulla, an optimate leader, cast a shadow over his youth. Following the sudden death of his father at 16, Caesar became the head of his family and soon found himself in a precarious position during Sulla's dictatorship, forcing him to flee Rome and lay the groundwork for his military career in Asia and Cilicia. Upon Sulla's death, Caesar returned to Rome and embarked on his political journey, distinguishing himself as a prosecuting advocate known for his oratory prowess and audacity. His ascent followed the cursus honorum, a sequential order of public offices held by aspiring politicians, encompassing roles such as military tribune, quaestor, aedile, and even the esteemed position of Pontifex Maximus. A critical moment in his rise was his election as consul in 59 BC. This event marked the formation of the First Triumvirate, an informal alliance with Pompey and Crassus, Rome's most influential figures. This alliance was solidified by Pompey's marriage to Caesar's daughter, Julia, intertwining their political and personal lives. However, it was Caesar's military exploits in the Gallic Wars from 58 BC to 50 BC that significantly bolstered his power and popularity. His campaigns through Gaul, chronicled in his commentaries, expanded Roman territories and filled his coffers, enhancing his stature but also stirring apprehension about his growing influence in Rome. The dissolution of the First Triumvirate, accelerated by Crassus's death and Julia's, led to an inevitable clash between Pompey and Caesar. The political tension reached its zenith when Caesar crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BC, a decisive act leading to a full-blown civil war. He pursued his rival Pompey to Egypt, where Pompey met his end. In Egypt, Caesar entangled himself in local politics, notably supporting Cleopatra's claim to the throne. His return to Rome saw him ascend to the role of dictator, initially for 10 years and later for life. His tenure was marked by significant reforms, including the introduction of the Julian calendar, restructuring debts, and a reorganization of the Senate. However, his consolidation of power alarmed many, leading to growing discontent among the senators. This discontent culminated in his assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BC by a group of senators, including Brutus and Cassius, who believed they were acting to restore the Republic. Ironically, Caesar's death plunged Rome into further civil wars, eventually leading to the rise of his adopted heir, Octavian, later Augustus, and the transformation of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar's life, marked by ambition, military genius, and political acumen, left an indelible mark on history. His military campaigns continue to be a subject of study, and his life and death have inspired countless works in literature and art. By reshaping the Roman state and laying the groundwork for the imperial system, Caesar's legacy has endured through the centuries, cementing his status as one of history's most influential figures. Donald Trump, born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City, rose to become the 45th President of the United States, a tenure marked by significant controversy and capped by the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the United States Capitol. Trump's early life in the affluent neighborhood of Jamaica Estates was shaped by the wealth and discipline of his real estate developer father, Fred Trump, and his mother, Mary Ann McLeod. After attending the New York Military Academy and the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, Trump joined his father's real estate business. His early ventures in Brooklyn and Queens eventually led to high-profile projects in Manhattan, like the development of Trump Tower. Despite his success, his business career was also punctuated with setbacks, including several bankruptcies. Trump's public persona was further amplified through his reality TV show, The Apprentice, which debuted in 2004. His catchphrase, "You're fired," became emblematic of his media image. His foray into politics has been hinted at since the late 1980s, and it materialized formally when he announced his candidacy for the Republican nomination in 2015. Trump's campaign, characterized by a direct appeal to populist sentiments and an unorthodox style, culminated in his election as president in 2016. His presidency was as unconventional as his campaign, marked by a direct communication style, often through Twitter, and frequent clashes with the media. Major aspects of his tenure included significant tax cuts, appointments to the Supreme Court, and a foreign policy marked by an America First stance. The most tumultuous aspect of his presidency, however, was the lead-up to the events of January 6, 2021. Following his loss in the 2020 presidential election, Trump vehemently disputed the results, making unsubstantiated claims of widespread electoral fraud. His refusal to concede and his persistent questioning of the election's legitimacy led to a significant political and social divide in the country. On January 6th, as Congress convened to certify the Electoral College results, Trump held a rally near the White House. He reiterated his claims of a stolen election and encouraged his supporters to march to the Capitol. Subsequently, a large number of his supporters violently stormed the Capitol, disrupting the certification process. The riot led to widespread vandalism, numerous injuries, and several deaths, including that of a Capitol police officer. This insurrection led to Trump's second impeachment by the House of Representatives, under the charge of incitement of insurrection. Though he was acquitted in the subsequent Senate trial, the event left an indelible mark on his presidency and became a defining moment in modern American political history. Post-presidency, Trump has remained a significant figure in American politics, with continued influence over the Republican Party and speculation about future political ambitions. The January 6th insurrection, and Trump's role in it, continues to be a subject of extensive investigation and debate, reflecting the deeply polarized state of American politics and society. This event, perhaps more than any other, encapsulates the complex and contentious nature of Trump's political legacy. Despite the fact that they lived over 2,000 years apart from one another, there are a shocking amount of similarities between Caesar and Trump. Let's go through some of the most significant ones. Populist appeal. Both Donald Trump and Julius Caesar mastered the art of populist appeal, each in their own historical context. Trump's ascent to the presidency was largely fueled by his direct appeal to a wide base of Americans, often using unconventional methods and bypassing traditional political intermediaries. He tapped into a sense of disenfranchisement among many voters, promising to disrupt the status quo in Washington. Similarly, Julius Caesar's connection with the Roman populace was a cornerstone of his power. He was adept at appealing to the common people, often positioning himself in opposition to the elitist Roman Senate. This appeal to the masses was a key strategy for both figures, allowing them to garner support and consolidate their power bases. Outsider status. Trump and Caesar shared a common narrative as outsiders challenging established political orders. Trump, coming from a business background with no prior political experience, positioned himself as a maverick, a stark contrast to career politicians. This outsider status resonated with many who felt disillusioned by conventional politics. Caesar, too, was often perceived as an outsider by the Roman political establishment. Despite his aristocratic lineage, his military accomplishments and alliances positioned him at odds with the Senate, allowing him to leverage his outsider status to gain influence and power. Controversial leadership and polarization. Both leaders were synonymous with controversy and polarization. Trump's presidency was marked by a series of unconventional decisions and communication styles that often resulted in sharp societal divisions. His approach to governance, characterized by direct communication through social media and often contentious public statements, polarized public opinion. Caesar, as a dictator of Rome, also pursued a leadership style that was divisive. His decisions, such as the extension of his dictatorship and the bypassing of traditional republican norms, created significant tension and division within Roman society, leading to political and social upheaval. The January 6th insurrection and Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon. The January 6th insurrection, where Trump supporters stormed the United States Capitol, stands as a significant event in the context of Trump's approach to retaining power. The insurrection was a direct consequence of Trump's refusal to accept the 2020 election results, a move that showcased his contentious grip on power and willingness to challenge democratic norms. This incident can be compared to Caesar's retention of power, particularly his decision to cross the Rubicon. This act was a direct challenge to the authority of the Roman Senate and plunged Rome into a civil war. Both Trump's and Caesar's actions in these instances demonstrate their readiness to go to extraordinary lengths to maintain their influence, disregarding established political processes and stoking conflict. Reform and policy. Both Trump and Caesar were instrumental in initiating significant reforms. Trump's administration was marked by substantial policy shifts, particularly in areas like immigration, where he implemented strict policies, and trade, where he renegotiated existing agreements. His deregulation efforts also marked a significant departure from his predecessor's policies. Caesar's reforms in Rome were equally transformative. His introduction of the Julian calendar, reforms in local governance, and the expansion of citizenship rights were pivotal in reshaping Roman society and governance. Conflict with established institutions. Trump's presidency and Caesar's rule were both characterized by frequent conflicts with established political institutions. Trump often found himself at odds with the United States judiciary and Congress, leading to numerous legal battles and political standoffs. His confrontational approach to governance led a strained relationship with various branches of government. Similarly, Caesar's relationship with the Roman Senate was marked by continuous strife. His accumulation of power and disregard for republican norms culminated in a pivotal shift in Roman political history, leading to the end of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. Dramatic end to leadership. The end of Trump's presidency was marked by his second impeachment and the contentious aftermath of the 2020 election, symbolizing a dramatic conclusion to a turbulent tenure. This period was characterized by political unrest and division, reflecting the contentious nature of his presidency. Similarly, Caesar's leadership ended with his assassination, an event that plunged Rome into further turmoil and conflict. His assassination underscored the deep divisions within Roman society and marked a significant turning point in Roman history. Clearly, the similarities between Caesar and Trump are quite striking. With this being said, however, it is also important to look at the differences between these two figures before making any conclusive statement about whether or not Donald Trump really is a modern-day Julius Caesar. So, let's take a look at some of the differences. While Trump's political ideology was rooted in modern conservatism, emphasizing nationalism and protectionism, Caesar's approach was less about adhering to a specific ideology and more about pragmatic power consolidation. Trump's America's First stance and his populist, sometimes isolationist rhetoric contrast sharply with Caesar's opportunistic tactics aimed at expanding personal power with the Roman Republic's existing structure. In terms of governance, Trump's style was unconventional and often disruptive, marked by his use of social media to bypass traditional channels and frequent staff turnover. Caesar, however, demonstrated a more strategic and systematic approach. He was adept at delegation and managing vast territories through a network of lieutenants and allies, combining charisma with strategic alliances and military strength. Economically, the two figures diverged significantly. Trump focused on trade protectionism, tax reduction, and industry deregulation to boost American manufacturing and reduce global supply chain dependency. Caesar's economic reforms, including land redistribution and debt relief, were part of a broader strategy to stabilize the state and consolidate power, addressing economic disparities and social unrest in Rome. Their military leadership also showcased distinct approaches. Trump, despite aggressive rhetoric, was cautious in military engagements, focusing instead on increasing defense spending. Caesar's rise, in contrast, was intrinsically linked to military conquest and the loyalty of his legions, with his campaigns in Gaul and the civil war in Rome being central to his strategy for power. The relationship each had with their respective legislative bodies further underscores their differences. Trump's presidency was marked by frequent clashes with the United States Congress, including significant standoffs over policy disagreements. Caesar, on the other hand, overpowered the Roman Senate, centralizing authority and effectively dismantling its power, a stark contrast to Trump's operation within the bounds of a constitutional democracy. Public communication and rhetoric were other areas of divergence. Trump's direct and often confrontational style, heavily reliant on social media, was a hallmark of his presidency. Caesar, while also an effective communicator, used a more calculated approach, using rhetoric to justify his actions and consolidate support among both the Roman elite and the populace. Finally, their visions for the future were fundamentally different. Trump's vision aimed at restoring perceived past American greatness, focusing on national pride and economic revival. In contrast, Caesar's actions were geared toward personal legacy and the transformation of the Roman state, ultimately transitioning from a republic to an empire. To conclude, in order to determine if Donald Trump can be regarded as a modern-day Julius Caesar, one must weigh the intricate tapestry of similarities and differences outlined in their leadership styles, ideologies, and impacts on their respective societies. On one hand, parallels such as their populist appeal, outsider status, controversial polarizing governance, significant policy reforms, conflicts with established institutions, and dramatic ends to their leadership paint a picture of two charismatic leaders who profoundly disrupted the political status quo. Both figures leveraged their direct connection with the populace, challenging traditional political structures and norms. Their tenures in power were marked by significant division and controversy, and both left a lasting imprint on their respective political landscapes. However, the dissimilarities between Trump and Caesar are equally telling. Ideologically, Trump's modern conservative stance, focusing on nationalism and protectionism, diverges from Caesar's pragmatic approach to power, devoid of a coherent political ideology in the modern sense. Their approaches to governance, economic policies, military strategies, and public communication also illustrate distinct methodologies and objectives. Trump's leadership, while disruptive and divisive, operated within the bounds of a constitutional democracy, often clashing with the other branches of government, but ultimately constrained by them. Caesar, in contrast, systematically dismantled the power structures of the Roman Republic, centralizing authority in himself and paving the way for the Roman Empire. The ongoing investigations and trials related to the January 6 incident add another layer of complexity to this comparison. These legal proceedings and their outcomes may further illuminate the nature of Trump's leadership and its impact on American democracy. The results could either underscore the severity of his attempts to challenge democratic norms or place his actions within the context of a deeply polarized political environment. Ultimately, the question of whether Donald Trump is a modern-day Julius Caesar is not one with a straightforward answer. It invites a nuanced consideration of both historical and contemporary political contexts. The similarities may suggest a certain parallel in their ability to disrupt and influence, while the differences underscore the unique circumstances and constraints of their respective times and political systems. As history continues to unfold, especially with the ongoing developments surrounding the January 6 incident, our understanding of Trump's place in history may evolve. Just as Caesar's legacy had been debated and reinterpreted through the centuries, so too will Trump's impact be assessed and reassessed in the light of future political and historical analysis. Thus, whether Trump is a modern-day Caesar may remain an open question, one that continues to provoke thought and discussion among historians, political scientists, and the broader public for the foreseeable future. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Before you leave, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the S.P.Q.R. Productions YouTube channel. And I hope to see you again very, very soon.